Newly released emails show how intensely Trump and his allies pressured the Justice Department to challenge the 2020 election results, and how then acting Attorney General Jeffrey Rosen resisted that pressure in the final weeks of the Trump administration. In one instance, Trump's chief of staff at the time, Mark Meadows, tried to have Rosen arrange an FBI meeting with a Rudy Giuliani ally who claimed Italy was using military technology and satellites to somehow change votes in favor of President Biden. Now, Rosen later wrote to then acting Deputy Attorney General Richard Donoghue, quote, "I flatly refused, said I would not be giving any special treatment to Giuliani or any of his witnesses, and reaffirmed yet again that I will not talk to Giuliani about any of this." CNN's Whitney Wild joins us now. Whitney, it didn't end there. Meadows kept pushing, and Rosen kept pushing back.
There was really a relentless effort at the end of December and early January by the White House to try to get DOJ to overturn the results of the election. I mean, there were members of the White House reaching out. There was a private attorney reaching out. For example, there was a private attorney who was peddling this lawsuit. He was trying to give it to into the hands of then acting Attorney General Jeffrey Rosen because he wanted DOJ to file a lawsuit that would, in effect, seek to overturn the election. So it was a frantic few days, but in the end, the Justice Department did not give in to the White House's demands. But just to put a fine point on it, to highlight just how, really outlandish things got between the White House and the Department of Justice, at one point, Jeffrey Rosen, in responding to an email by Mark Meadows, forwards an email to his number two, Richard Donoghue. And underneath, in this email, Jeffrey Rosen says, "Can you believe this? I'm not going to respond to the message below." The message below, Anna, was Mark Meadows asking him to look into allegations of, voting anomalies in Fulton County, Georgia. And, Jeffrey Rosen obviously saying this is crazy. I'm not doing this. So he forwards it to Richard Donoghue. And then later they get this YouTube link from Mark Meadows that, again, purports to, be part of this conspiracy of Italian satellites trying to manipulate voter data. So Jeffrey Rosen just sends it to Richard Donoghue. And Richard Donoghue, again, the number two at DOJ, just responds simply pure insanity. And that captures the hysteria out of the White House that DOJ was trying to deal with in the run-up to the riot, Anna. Just put the timing into context. I mean, that's how hysterical they were at the White House. They were just throwing whatever they could at the wall to try to see if anything would stick, to try to convince DOJ to overturn this election, Anna.
What's also so fascinating about this, Whitney, is that this was after then Attorney General Bill Barr was booted from the Trump administration, in part, we believe, because he would not buy into the big lie and was publicly saying that he saw no widespread election fraud. And so then when Jeffrey Rosen took over, I think the idea was for a lot of people that he was going to be the person to do Trump's bidding. So how did all of this end?
Well, we don't know exactly what the final endpoint was, but the emails do show sort of these two, final moments. And I think, the really big one out of the two is this January 3rd meeting between a man named Jeffrey Clark, Jeffrey Rosen, the White House, President Trump. And it's sort of this apprentice-style pitch to the president to either make Jeffrey Clark the acting attorney general, keep Jeffrey Rosen as the acting attorney general. At the time, and this is reporting from the New York Times, Jeffrey Clark was pitching himself as someone who might be able to take these election fraud claims to the finish line. So he was, that was his pitch. Jeffrey Rosen, in the end, won out, and there was this sigh of relief. And one of these emails, Anna, a member of DOJ, the executive staff over there, says, in the end, it looks like, basically the rule of law had won. That's not the verbatim, but that's the paraphrasing. He's breathes the sigh of relief and says, it looks like Jeffrey Rosen and the rule of law won, Anna.
Yeah, the direct quote is, "It sounds like Rosen and the cause of justice won." Right. Whitney Wild, fascinating. Thank you for that reporting.
These claims have been dismissed in state courts, dismissed in federal courts, and whether it was the president dictating things to an assistant, send an email over to justice, or the chief of staff not nobody, at the White House, sending investigates these things. The absurdity of it directly to the acting attorney general is what makes it wow.
It was absolutely outlandish, and the moment that these accusations came to the Justice Department, that was the reception, that they thought this was simply outrageous. I mean, at one point, when discussing this allegation that Italian satellites were somehow manipulating the vote count here in the United States, the number 2 at DOJ at the time called it pure insanity. That's just one example. I mean, John, there are a list of examples in around 232 documents or so we got from House Oversight Committee that really document in granular detail the hysteria that was building between December 14th and January 3rd. December 14th is a really critical day because the day the states certified the Electoral College votes, the day that the Trump White House went on offense on Jeffrey Rosen, trying to get him to overturn the
so you can put that calendar up and go through it. So you just look, as Whitney notes, the 14th, that's when the electors meet around the country, and we're done, right? Yes, we certify our states, then they send word to Washington. January 6th is when they're supposed to, and look in between there, you see 3 or 4 occasions where you have emails from the White House, pressure from the White House, hey, look into this, hey, look into that, essentially trying to take the train off the tracks, right? Take the train off the tracks. One of the things I love from this reporting is this is the acting attorney general, and you have to have some empathy for him. He's getting this incoming. He's in this job temporarily. He thinks he's in it for a few weeks, and then there's an inauguration. I flatly refused, Attorney General, wrote the acting, Rosen says, and said I would not be giving any special treatment to Giuliani or any of his, quote, witnesses. Even he had the smarts to put witnesses in quotes, and reaffirmed yet again that I will not talk to Giuliani about any of this. Can you imagine that? You're the chief law enforcement officer of the United States at that moment, maybe on a temporary basis, and they're telling you to meet with Giuliani. And among the things we want to talk about is that the Italians are using satellites and military technology to flip votes. Excuse me?
Yeah, it's completely nonsensical. And, at that time, there were a lot of people who theorized that the president was just sort of faking this, that he had this sort of grand scheme to say publicly that he believed the election was stolen, but privately he knew otherwise. Clearly, even privately, not only did he believe it, but senior members of the White House were pushing the Justice Department to back it up, something that the prior Attorney General, Bill Barr, not to give him too much credit here, but refused to say when he was asked repeatedly. He did not give credence to all of these election lies. So this was deeply ingrained in this White House, in this president, and it was not just the words. They were trying to act on it, and that's what makes it so different.
That's what makes it so different. Outlandish is a great word. You could pick any number of words for it. So here's my question. You learn again today about more of these emails, and yet most Republicans will not speak out publicly and say the words, if you needed any more proof, Donald Trump must not return to national politics, that he would do this with the presidency, and yet it's largely crickets.
There's no badge of courage that any elected Republican gets other than, some hits on cable news. Right. They don't get electoral benefits from crossing former President Trump. And so there is a head in the sand. If we just don't talk about it, if we just don't confront it, then maybe it will go away. Of course, their heads were in the sand during that period from Election Day until January.